Well, I know you're not going to breach cabinet solidarity, but I also know you did not support Australia joining the ICC. Alexander Downer says, you know, we've either got to reform this body or we should withdraw from the ICC. What do you think?
Well, you won't be surprised that I agree with Alexander. Alexander was always optimistic about the ICC. I think he appreciates that it hasn't turned out the way we expected or the Cabinet expected back in 2005 or 2006 or whenever it was that we made the decision to join. This is a one-sided, compromised, conflicted recommendation that the court has made. The idea that a country like Australia would arrest a Democratic Prime Minister in Bibi Netanyahu, who is providing heroic leadership to his country in an existential struggle, it's just dead wrong.
As a former leader yourself, right, do you often sit there and reflect on the rise of anti-Semitism and what leaders, state, federal and community, you know, are not doing in this country to stamp it out? It feels like it's only growing stronger, I have to say, Tony.
Well, Peter, I recall the actions of the police back in late 2021 against the freedom protesters. I recall the use of tear gas and rubber bullets on people near the Shrine of Remembrance in Melbourne who just wanted to say, let us be free. Now, if the police can be as strong as that against people who were supporting freedom, surely they can be just as strong against people who are promoting the most vile race hate. And yet there's been kid-glove treatment of these anti-Semitic pro-Hamas protesters ever since October the 7th. The idea that the police should be managing these protests as opposed to suppressing them, I just think is wrong. It's un-Australian to allow this kind of thing on our streets, and it should be stopped. What's the point of having a police if the streets are ruled by people who are promoting hate, who certainly aren't, I think, conforming to the general decency that we expect of Australians?
Just after Donald Trump announced that he will bring back tariffs in relation to China, the Chinese ambassador in Australia spoke in Canberra, and he made it very clear how he thinks the world should look at the Australia-China relationship and learn from us, I suppose, on how we should perhaps kowtow. Have a listen.
We have turned the relationship from derail back on the right track, from going down back to stabilization, and from moving to the wrong direction back to the right direction. And there's no reason for us to compromise our respective national interest for the sake of a third party.
I mean, we have basically given China everything it wanted. We've pulled out of WTO actions and more. And the Prime Minister, well, you can't help but look at him on the world stage with President Xi and feel we're allowing Beijing to dictate terms.
Look, the worst endorsement that any self-respecting democratic politician could get would be an endorsement from the Beijing regime. The idea that Beijing thinks that we're somehow a model for the democratic world, well, frankly, we should be ashamed of ourselves, absolutely ashamed of ourselves. On this point of tariffs, Peter, we do have to understand that as long as the CCP is in charge in Beijing, we are in the throes of a sustained strategic competition, a new Cold War, one that is every bit as serious and as important as the last one that we have to win. Under the CCP, we love the Chinese people, but the Chinese government is not our friend. We just have to understand that. And the sooner we cut China out of all our critical supply chains, the better for our long-term national security.
You're not wrong. I want to just pick you up too on one issue related to South Australia and the voice that they've brought in down there, given your advocacy to oppose the voice at a national level. Tomorrow we'll see in the South Australian Parliament the inaugural presentation from the SA Voice Group. Now, this will be the first for any parliament in Australia. They will, present their view of the world. They are also given the capacity, this group, the Voice, to question the cabinet, to also question bureaucrats. It's almost like a parallel parliamentary sort of body. Now, 64% of South Australians rejected the Voice at a national level. Why are we persisting with this?
It's certainly privileged lobbying that's being accorded to this body that was elected by, I think, less than 10% of the Aboriginal population of South Australia. I think that the Labor Party, state and federal, has got to understand that no means no. They should listen to the overwhelming verdict of the Australian people last October. We are against separatism, and good on the state coalition opposition for having the backbone to say that should they be in office, they will repeal this legislation.
All right, have a happy and holy Christmas, Tony Abbott. Are you going to do any fire brigade duty over the break?
Look, I will do my best to serve, and as always, we hope that it's not necessary, but I'm sure that the tens of thousands of New South Wales Rural Fire Service volunteers and the volunteers for the other state and territory services will be standing by this summer.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks, Tony.